The giant glass dome of the Galactic Council building stretched high above the marble floor. Inside, thousands of alien beings sat in their floating chairs, all facing the center stage. The air buzzed with nervous energy as creatures from every corner of the galaxy whispered to each other in dozens of different languages. Ambassador Kethver from the Zephyrian Empire stood at the speaking platform. His tall, thin body shook as he gripped the podium with his 4 arms. His blue skin had turned pale, and his large black eyes darted around the room before he began to speak. "My fellow council members," he said, his voice carrying across the silent chamber, "I bring terrible news from the Outer Rim territories. The Void Swarm has returned." A wave of gasps and frightened sounds swept through the audience. Many aliens had heard stories about the Void Swarm, but most thought they were just old tales told to scare children. 17 star systems have already fallen, Kethver continued. The creatures ate everything in their path. Planets, ships, space stations. Nothing remains but empty space where thriving worlds once existed. In the front row, Hive Queen Zixara clicked her sharp mandibles together. Her insect-like body was covered in shiny black armor, and her compound eyes reflected the lights from above. She had ruled the Hive Collective for over 200 years and had never seen her people so afraid. "How many ships did we lose?" she asked, her voice sounding like metal scraping against stone. "All of them," Kethver replied. "The 5th Fleet, the 7th Fleet, even the Elite Guard, over 10,000 vessels, gone." The chamber erupted in panicked voices. Some aliens were crying, others were shouting, and a few had already started to leave their seats. The Void Swarm was not just another enemy. They were living ships that grew stronger by eating everything they touched. Their hulls could adapt to any weapon, and their numbers seemed endless. Lord Vexthal from the Celestial Empire stood up slowly. His golden robes flowed around his tall frame, and the crystal crown on his head caught the light. He was one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy, but even he looked worried. "What do our military advisors suggest?" he asked in his deep, commanding voice. "They have run all possible battle plans through the computers," Kethver answered. "The results are the same every time: complete defeat. The swarm will reach the core worlds in 6 rotations at their current speed." The chamber fell silent. The core worlds were where most of the galaxy's population lived. Billions of beings would die if the swarm reached them. In the back section, where the newer council members sat, Admiral J. Collins shifted in his chair. He was a human from Earth, a planet that had only joined the Galactic Council 5 years ago. His gray hair was cut short, and deep lines marked his weathered face from years of military service. Next to him sat Dr. Lisa Martinez, Earth's chief scientist on the council. She was younger than Collins, with dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Her brown eyes studied the alien faces around them, trying to understand their fear. "We should evacuate the core worlds," suggested Ambassador Yelleth from the Harmony Coalition. Her voice was soft and musical like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Save as many as we can." "And go where?" demanded another voice. "The swarm will follow us wherever we run. They can track life energy across vast distances." Collins stood up from his seat. The conversation in the chamber slowly died down as the aliens noticed the human rising. Most of them barely paid attention to the Earth delegation. Humans were considered primitive by galactic standards, barely worthy of their small voting seat. "We volunteer our fleet," Collins said in a clear, steady voice. For a moment no one responded. Then Lord Vexthal began to laugh. It was not a kind laugh, but a cold, mocking sound that echoed through the dome. "The Deathworlders want to play soldier," he said, using the insulting term that many aliens used for humans. "Your tiny fleet would be destroyed before you could fire a single shot." Other aliens joined in the laughter. The Zephyrians clicked their tongues in amusement. The crystalline hierarchy's representatives made tinkling sounds like breaking glass. Even some of the more peaceful species smiled at what they saw as human foolishness. Dr. Martinez stood up beside Collins. She pushed her glasses up her nose and looked directly at Lord Vexthal. "Our planet has been trying to kill us for millions of years. she said calmly. Ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, diseases, predators. We learned to fight. Back against impossible odds because we had no choice? Your weapons are primitive, scoffed Commander Thexanol from the crystalline hierarchy. His body was made of living crystal that sparkled in the light. You still use chemical explosives and metal projectiles. Our energy weapons are far superior. Your energy weapons don't seem to work against the swarm, Collins pointed out. Maybe it's time to try something different. The chamber grew quiet. Again, the aliens looked at each other uncertainly. It was true that all their advanced technology had failed against the Void Swarm, their plasma cannons. Particle beams and quantum torpedoes had barely scratched the creature's adaptive hulls. Hive Queen. Zixara leaned forward in her chair. How many ships can Earth provide? She asked. 200 vessels, Collins replied. Not much compared to your fleets, but every ship is crewed by volunteers who know what they're fighting for. It would be suicide, whispered Ambassador Yelith. Your people would all die, Collins nodded slowly. Maybe, but someone has to try. We can't just sit here and wait for the end. The debate continued for hours. Some aliens argued that letting humans join the battle would be a waste of resources. Others said that desperate times called for desperate measures. A few suggested that the humans might provide a useful distraction while the main fleets retreated. Finally, the Council voted. It was not unanimous, but the majority agreed to let Earth's fleet join the final defense. The battle would take place. At the Kepler Junction, a strategic point where several major space lanes crossed as the session ended, Collins and Martinez gathered their papers and prepared to leave. Around them, aliens continued to debate and argue about the coming battle. They think we're going to die, Martinez said quietly to Collins as they walked toward the exit. They're probably right, Collins replied. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't try. Outside the council building, the two humans looked up at the alien sky. Strange colored stars dotted the horizon, and 3 moons hung in the purple twilight. It was beautiful, but it would all be gone if the swarm reached the core worlds. How long do we have? Martinez asked. 3 days to get our fleet to the Kepler Junction, Collins answered. Then we find out if being stubborn is enough to save a galaxy. They walked toward their transport ship, knowing that the next few days would determine the fate of trillions of beings across the stars. The aliens called them Deathworlders as an insult, but Collins was starting to think it might be exactly what the galaxy needed. The space around Kepler Junction looked like a metal forest. Thousands of alien ships floated in perfect formations, their hulls gleaming under the light of distant stars. The fleet was the largest gathering of military vessels in galactic history. With ships from 47 different species all working together, Captain Ben Harper stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching the alien fleet through the main viewing screen. His human ship looked small and rough compared to the elegant vessels around them. Where the alien ships had smooth curves and glowing energy fields, the Defiance was all sharp angles and thick armor plating. Look at those beauties, said Amy. Stone, his weapons officer. She was a young woman with short red hair and keen eyes that missed nothing. Their ships looked like they were carved from diamonds. Pretty doesn't win fights, replied Pete Williams from the engineering station. He was a stocky man with grease-stained coveralls and calloused hands. I'd rather have our thick hull than their fancy shields any day. Sam Rodriguez, the tactical officer, studied the fleet formations on his display screen. He was a quiet man who spoke little but saw everything. They're organizing by species, he observed. Each group stays with their own kind, Harper nodded. The alien fleets were indeed separated by race. The crystalline hierarchy's ships sparkled like jewels in one section. The Zephyrian Empire's vessels glowed with blue energy in another. The Hive Collective ships moved in perfect swarms, all controlled by the Queen's thoughts. Captain, came a voice over the communication system. This is Admiral Collins aboard the UES Determination. All human ships report status. Harper activated his comm unit. Defiance ready for battle, sir. All systems green. Similar reports came from the other human ships. The UES Courage, commanded by Captain Maria Santos. The U's Resolute under Captain Tony Blake. The UES Vengeance with Captain Kelly right at the helm. 200 human vessels in total, each one crewed by volunteers who knew they might not survive the coming battle. On the alien command ship, a massive vessel called the Eternal Glory, the fleet commanders gathered for their final briefing. The ship's meeting room was enormous, with seats designed for dozens of different alien body types. Holographic displays showed the battle plans in 3 dimensions. Commander, the Exonal of the crystalline hierarchy, stood near the center display. His crystal body caught the light and threw rainbow patterns across the walls. "Our energy weapons are charged and ready," he announced. "The plasma cannons will fire in coordinated volleys. The hive ships will attack in perfect formation," added Hive Queen Zixara through her communication link. "Every vessel will move as one mind, striking with precision." Admiral Collins sat at the far end of the table, the only human in the room. The other commanders barely looked at him, still dismissing the Earth fleet as insignificant. "What about the human ships?" asked Navigator Yeleth from the Harmony Coalition. Her question sounded more polite than interested. "They will provide support," answered Lord Vexel from his golden throne. "Perhaps they can distract the enemy while our main forces attack." Collins said nothing, but his jaw tightened. He had commanded fleets for 30 years and knew the difference between a real battle plan and wishful thinking. The briefing ended, and the commanders returned to their ships. Collins walked back to the UES Determination, where Dr. Martinez was waiting with the latest intelligence reports. "The swarm is 12 hours away," she said, showing him the sensor data. "We're tracking at least 50 bioships, maybe more. They're bigger than our worst estimates." "How big?" Collins asked. "Each one is the size of a small moon." "They're not just ships, Jake. They're living creatures that happen to be able to fly through space." Collins studied the data with growing concern. The Void swarm ships were unlike anything in known space. They had no metal hulls or energy shields. Instead, they were covered in thick, organic armor that could heal itself and adapt to different weapons. "The aliens are going to attack them like they would attack normal ships," he said. "It won't work." "I know," Martinez replied, "but they won't listen to us. We're just primitives from a backwater planet, remember?" Hours passed as the fleets waited. The alien ships maintained perfect formations, their captains confident in their superior technology. The human vessels stayed in their own small section, looking crude and outdated compared to the sleek alien designs on the bridge of the UES Defiance. Harper's crew made final preparations. Amy Stone checked the weapon systems one more time. Pete Williams ran diagnostics on the engines and power grid. Sam Rodriguez studied the tactical displays, looking for any advantage they might have. "Sir," said Amy, "I'm reading something strange about our weapons compared to theirs." "What do you mean?" Harper asked. "The alien ships all use energy weapons, plasma beams, particle cannons, quantum torpedoes, all very advanced. But we're still using kinetic weapons and chemical explosives. Your point?" "The swarm has been adapting to energy weapons for who knows how long. But when was the last time they faced someone throwing chunks of metal at them?" Harper considered this. Human weapons were indeed primitive by galactic standards. Railguns that fired solid metal projectiles, missile pods loaded with explosive warheads, nuclear torpedoes that used atomic fusion for destruction rather than exotic energy fields. "Maybe being primitive isn't such a bad thing," he said quietly. The waiting ended when the long-range sensors detected the approaching swarm. The alien fleet immediately went to battle stations, their ships glowing with charged weapons and raised shields. "All ships, this is Admiral Collins," came the voice over the communication system. "Remember, we're not here to look good. We're here to win." The first swarm bioship emerged from hyperspace like a nightmare made real. It was enormous, with a hull that looked like black leather stretched over massive bones. Tentacles writhed along its sides, and acidic drool leaked from weapon ports that looked like giant mouths. "By the stars," whispered Navigator Yulith on the alien command channel. "It's horrible." More bioships appeared, each one different but equally terrifying. They moved through space with a grace that seemed impossible for such massive creatures. Their hulls pulsed with alien life, and strange lights flickered beneath their organic armor. "All alien fleets, attack Formation Alpha," commanded Lord Vexthal. "Fire all weapons." The alien ships opened fire with everything they had. Thousands of energy beams lanced out across space, striking the swarm bioships with enough power to destroy planets. The space between the fleets lit up like a star as the weapons' discharge created brilliant explosions. For a moment, it looked like the attack was working. The bioships reeled backward, their hulls scarred and burning. But then something terrible happened. The wounds began to heal, and the organic armor started to change, becoming resistant to the energy weapons hitting it. "They're adapting," Dr. Martinez said from the human command ship. "Just like we thought they would." The swarm bioships returned fire with acidic projectiles and bioelectric beams. Alien ships began to explode as their shields failed and their hulls dissolved. The perfect formations broke apart as captains tried to avoid the deadly weapons. "Human fleet," Admiral Collins said over the comm. "Time to show them how we do things on Earth." Captain Harper smiled grimly on the bridge of the Defiance. "Amy, target the big one in the center. All weapons, full power." "Aye, sir," Amy replied, her fingers dancing over the weapon controls, firing railguns, missile pods, and nuclear torpedoes. The human weapons were nothing like the elegant alien technology. They were loud, crude, and violent. But they were also completely unexpected by the swarm bioships, whose adaptive armor had no defense against simple kinetic force and chemical explosions. The galaxy was about to learn that sometimes the old ways were the best ways. The first human weapons fire lit up the darkness of space like an ancient fireworks display. The used Defiance shook as its railguns launched chunks of metal at incredible speeds toward the swarm bioships. The projectiles were simple iron rods, but they moved so fast they glowed white-hot as they cut through space. Captain Ben Harper watched the tactical display as his ship's weapons found their target. The massive bioship in the center of the swarm formation took 3 direct hits to its hull. Black ichor sprayed from the wounds like blood from a giant animal. "Direct hits," reported Amy Stone from the weapons station. "The creature is hurt, but still moving." Across the human fleet, similar scenes played out. The UES Courage, commanded by Captain Maria Santos, fired its missile pods in rapid succession. The chemical explosives detonated against the bioship's organic armor, tearing chunks of flesh away from the living hull. "This is impossible," came the voice of Commander Thexanel over the alien communication channel. His crystal body was flickering with confusion as he watched the battle unfold. How are their primitive weapons working when ours failed? On the bridge of the alien command ship, Navigator Yileth stared at her sensor readings in disbelief. "The swarm bioships are not adapting to the human weapons," she reported. "Their armor is healing slowly, but it cannot change to resist kinetic impacts." Pete Williams, the chief engineer on the Defiance, laughed as he watched the engine readouts. Those spacebugs spent so long fighting fancy energy weapons, they forgot how to deal with good old-fashioned rocks thrown really hard. The human fleet pressed their advantage. Captain Tony Blake aboard the UES Resolute ordered his crew to fire everything they had. Nuclear torpedoes streaked through space, their primitive fusion warheads creating miniature suns when they hit the bioships. The atomic fire was something the swarm had never encountered before, and their organic hulls burned like paper. "All human ships maintain formation," ordered Admiral Collins from the UES Determination. "Keep hitting them with everything we've got." Sam Rodriguez, the tactical officer on the Defiance, studied the battle patterns on his screen. "Captain, the bioships are trying to adapt, but they're confused. Their armor keeps trying to defend against energy weapons that aren't coming." "Good," Harper replied. "Amy, target their weapon ports. Those things that look like mouths." Amy Stone adjusted her aim and fired another railgun volley. The metal projectiles punched through the bioships weapon ports, causing internal explosions that made the creature writhe in pain. Acidic blood leaked from the wounds, floating in space like green clouds. The alien fleets watched in amazement as the human ships did what their advanced technology could not. The crystalline hierarchy's vessels had the most powerful energy weapons in the galaxy, but they could only scratch the swarm's adaptive armor. The human weapons, crude and simple, were tearing the bioships apart. How is this possible? Lord Vexthal demanded from his golden throne. Their weapons are thousands of years behind our technology. Dr. Martinez, monitoring the battle from the human command ship, provided the answer over the communication channel. The swarm evolved to fight energy-based weapons. Their bio-armor can absorb and redirect plasma, particle beams, and quantum energy, but they never learned to deal with simple kinetic force. Captain Kelly Wright of the UES Vengeance proved this point by ordering her ship to fire its entire load of rail gun ammunition in one massive barrage. Hundreds of metal projectiles slammed into a single bioship, punching holes through its hull like bullets through wet paper. The creature stopped moving, its organic systems shutting down as its life fluids leaked into space. First kill goes to the Vengeance, Wright announced over the comm, her voice filled with grim satisfaction. The battle was far from over. The swarm still had dozens of bioships, and they were learning to avoid the human weapons. The creatures began to move in unpredictable patterns, using their natural agility to dodge the kinetic projectiles. They're getting smarter, observed Sam Rodriguez. The bioships are spreading out, making themselves harder to hit. Harper nodded. Then we need to get closer. Amy, prepare the close-range weapons. Pete, give me everything the engines can handle. The Defiance accelerated toward the enemy formation, its hull groaning under the stress. The other human ships followed, abandoning the safe distance that the alien fleets maintained. They moved in close where their weapons would be most effective. The humans are insane, gasped Hive Queen Zixara as she watched the Earth ships charge directly at the bioships. They're flying straight into the enemy formation. They're going to get themselves killed, added Navigator Yeleth, but the human ships had advantages that the aliens didn't understand. Their hulls were built to withstand the harsh environment of Earth's orbit, where space debris and radiation were constant threats. The thick armor plating that made them look crude also made them incredibly tough. The UES Courage took a direct hit from a bioship's acidic weapon. The corrosive substance ate through the outer hull, but the ship's multiple armor layers contained the damage. Captain Santos kept fighting, her ship scarred but still functional. This is what we trained for, she told her crew. Earth doesn't make quitters. The human fleet's aggressive tactics began to pay off. By closing the distance they could use their full range of weapons. Machine guns sprayed bullets at the bioship's sensory organs. Explosive charges detonated against their hulls. Even the ship's emergency thrusters were used as weapons, burning the bioships with chemical flames. Pete Williams had an idea that would have horrified the alien commanders. Captain, what if we ram them? Harper looked at his engineer with surprise. Ram them? Pete, that's suicide. Maybe, Pete replied. But our ships are built tough. We might survive the impact long enough to do some real damage. The alien fleets listened to this conversation with growing horror. The idea of using their beautiful, expensive ships as weapons was unthinkable. But the humans were actually considering it. The Deathworlders are discussing ramming attacks, reported Commander Thexenol to the alien command ship. They want to crash their vessels into the enemy. Impossible, said Lord Vexthal. No rational species would sacrifice their ships like that. But the humans were not like other species. They came from a world where survival meant taking desperate risks. Earth had taught them that sometimes the only way to win was to be willing to lose everything. The battle raged on, with the human ships fighting at close range while the alien fleets provided long-range support. The swarm bioships, confused by the primitive weapons that their advanced defenses could encounter, began to fall back. For the first time in their expansion across the galaxy, the Void Swarm was losing a battle. The creatures that had devoured entire star systems were being stopped by ships that looked like flying scrap metal and weapons that belonged in a museum. All alien fleets, Admiral Collins called over the communication channel. "The swarm is retreating. Now is the time to press our advantage." The alien commanders, inspired by the human example, began to modify their own tactics. The crystalline hierarchy started using their mining lasers as weapons, focusing the beams into narrow, penetrating rays. The Hive Collective launched their smaller ships like missiles, using them to physically impact the bioships. Even Lord Vexful, proud and arrogant, ordered his ships to close the distance and engage at shorter range. The entire Allied fleet began to fight like humans, using whatever weapons they had in whatever way would cause the most damage. The tide of battle was turning, but the war was far from over. The largest bioship, a creature the size of a small moon, still floated in the center of the swarm formation. Its hull was covered in weapon ports that looked like eyes and tentacles as thick as battleships writhed along its sides. "That's their command ship," Dr. Martinez observed. "If we can take it down, the rest of the swarm will lose coordination." Harper looked at the massive creature on his screen. It would take everything the human fleet had to bring down something that size. But that was exactly the kind of impossible fight that humans specialized in. "All ships," he called to the human fleet. "Target the big one. Time to finish this." The swarm command ship was a monster beyond imagination. Its hull stretched for miles in every direction, covered in thick organic armor that pulsed with alien life. Dozens of tentacles, each one as large as a human battleship, whipped through space around its massive body. The creature's surface was dotted with weapon ports that looked like giant eyes, all of them focused on the approaching human fleet. Captain Ben Harper stared at the beast through the main screen of the UES Defiance. His ship had taken heavy damage during the battle. Sections of the hull were missing, and sparks flew from damaged control panels. But the vessel was still fighting, just like its crew. "How many ships do we have left?" Harper asked Sam Rodriguez. The tactical officer checked his readings. 47 human ships still capable of fighting, sir. We've lost more than half the fleet." Harper nodded grimly. The cost had been terrible, but they had achieved something no other species had managed. The swarm was retreating, except for this one massive command ship that refused to give up. "All human vessels, this is Admiral Collins," came the voice over the communication system. "The alien fleets are pulling back to regroup. It's up to us to finish this." On the bridge of the UES Courage, Captain Maria Santos surveyed the damage to her ship. The left side of her vessel was completely gone, torn away by an acidic blast from a bioship. Half her crew was dead or wounded, but the remaining sailors worked at their stations with quiet determination. "Captain," called her weapons officer, "we're down to our last nuclear torpedo." "Then we better make it count," Santos replied. The human ships formed a ragged line as they approached the command ship. They looked like wounded animals limping toward a giant predator, but their weapons were still ready to fire. The alien fleets watched from a safe distance, unable to believe that the humans were actually going to attack something so massive. "The Deathworlders are going to try to fight that thing," whispered Navigator Yeleth on the alien command channel. "They must be insane." "Or very brave," added Hive Queen Zixara. Her compound eyes reflected a new respect for the human species. "I have never seen such determination." The command ship opened fire first. Dozens of acidic projectiles and bioelectric beams lanced out from its weapon ports. The space around the human fleet filled with deadly energy as the creature tried to destroy its attackers. The U's Resolute, commanded by Captain Tony Blake, took a direct hit from one of the bioelectric beams. The energy surge overloaded the ship systems, and the vessel went dark. But even as his ship died around him, Blake managed to fire one last missile volley before the Resolute exploded in a ball of fire. "Tony's gone," reported Amy Stone from the Defiance's weapons station. Her voice was steady, but Harper could see tears in her eyes. "He took out 3 of their weapon ports," Sam Rodriguez observed. "The captain would be proud." The human fleet pressed forward, trading ships for damage to the massive command ship. The UES Vengeance under Captain Kelly Wright rammed directly into one of the creature's tentacles. The impact tore the tentacle clean off, sending black ichor spraying across space. But the collision destroyed Wright's ship completely. "We're running out of vessels," Pete Williams said from the engineering station. "That thing is just too big." Dr. Martinez's voice came over the communication channel from the command ship. "I'm reading massive energy buildup in the creature's core. It's preparing some kind of super weapon." Admiral Collins studied the tactical display on his screen. The command ship was indeed charging up for a final attack. If it succeeded, the blast would destroy not just the human fleet, but the alien ships as well. "All remaining human ships," Collins ordered. "Concentrate everything on the creature's center section. We need to stop that weapon from firing." The surviving human vessels opened fire with everything they had left. Railguns, missile pods, nuclear torpedoes, and even emergency flares streaked toward the command ship's core. The barrage was impressive, but the creature's thick armor absorbed most of the damage. "It's not enough," Harper said, watching the energy readings continue to climb. "We need something bigger." That's when Captain Maria Santos made a decision that would be remembered throughout galactic history. Her ship, the UES Courage, was barely holding together. Most of her crew was dead, and her weapons were almost empty. But she still had one thing left to give. "All hands abandon ship," she ordered over the ship's communication system. "This is Captain Santos. I'm taking us in for a ramming run." "Captain, no," called her remaining crew members. "We can still fight. You fought enough," Santos replied. "Get to the escape pods. That's an order." The few surviving crew members reluctantly obeyed, launching themselves toward the other human ships in small escape pods. Santos remained alone on the bridge of the Courage, her hands steady on the controls as she aimed. Her dying ship at the command ship's core, the alien fleets watched in stunned silence as the human captain flew her vessel directly toward the massive creature. The Courage was tiny compared to the command ship, like a mosquito attacking a whale. But Santos had one advantage that the creature didn't expect. "All ships, clear the area," she called over the communication channel. "I'm going nuclear." The other human captains understood immediately. Santos was going to overload her ship's nuclear reactor, turning the entire vessel into a massive bomb. The explosion would be powerful enough to damage even the command ships. "Thick armor. Maria, don't do this," Admiral Collins pleaded. "We can find another way." "There is no other way," Santos replied. Her voice was calm and peaceful, as if she had finally found the purpose she had been searching for all her life. "Tell my kids I love them." The Courage struck the command ship's hull at full speed. The impact sent shockwaves through the massive creature's body. But the real damage came a moment later when Santos detonated her nuclear reactor. The explosion was like a new star being born. White-hot nuclear fire consumed both ships, sending waves of energy and debris across the battlefield. The command ship's organic armor burned away in seconds, exposing the vulnerable flesh beneath. When the light faded, a massive hole had been torn in the creature's center section. Black ichor poured from the wound like a river, and the bioelectric weapon that had been charging up went silent. "She did it," Amy Stone whispered. "Santos took out their main weapon." But the command ship was not dead yet. Wounded and bleeding, it began to retreat toward the other bioships. If it escaped, it could heal and return to threaten the galaxy again. "We can't let it get away," Harper said. "All remaining ships, pursue and engage." The human fleet, now reduced to fewer than 20 vessels, chased after the massive creature. They were David pursuing Goliath, but they had already proven that size didn't always matter in a fight. The alien fleets, inspired by the human sacrifice, began to advance as well. The crystalline hierarchy ships fired their mining lasers at the creature's wounds. The Hive Collective's vessels swarmed around the command ship like angry insects. Even Lord Vexthal's proud Golden Fleet joined the attack, their weapons adding to the barrage. "The command ship is losing coordination," Dr. Martinez reported. "The other bioships are starting to scatter." Harper looked at the tactical display and saw that she was right. Without the command ship's control, the individual bioships were acting on their own instincts. Some were fleeing, others were attacking randomly, and a few had simply stopped moving altogether. "This is our chance," he said to his crew. "Amy, prepare our last nuclear torpedo. Pete, give me everything the engines have left." The Defiance, battered and barely functional, made one final run at the command ship. The creature tried to defend itself with its remaining weapons, but it was too badly damaged to aim properly. The acidic blasts went wide, missing the small human ship as it closed the distance. "Torpedo ready," Amy Stone reported. "Fire!" Harper ordered. The nuclear torpedo streaked through space and disappeared into the massive wound that Captain Santos had created. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the command ship began to glow from within, its organic systems overloading as the nuclear fire spread through its body. The explosion that followed was visible from light years away. The command ship tore itself apart from the inside out, its death throes sending shockwaves across the entire battlefield. The remaining bio-ships, suddenly cut off from their central consciousness, began to shut down one by one. The Battle of Kepler Junction was over. The void swarm, the terror that had consumed 17 star systems, was finally defeated. And it had been stopped by a small fleet of primitive ships crewed by beings that the galaxy had dismissed as backward Deathworlders. In the aftermath, as rescue ships searched for survivors and the alien fleets surveyed the wreckage, one thing was clear: the galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. 3 weeks after the Battle of Kepler Junction, the Galactic Council chambers were packed with representatives from across the galaxy. The great glass dome echoed with dozens of alien languages as beings who had never spoken to each other before shared their stories of the battle. The mood was different from the panic that had filled the room before. Now there was something else in the air, something that many species had never felt before when looking at humans. Respect. Admiral Jake Collins stood at the center of the chamber, his left arm missing from the shoulder down. The injury had happened when his ship's bridge was hit by acidic fire during the final battle. Dr. Lisa Martinez stood beside him, her face marked with burn scars from an explosion that had nearly killed her. Both humans wore their wounds like badges of honor. "The final casualty report," Collins said, his voice carrying clearly through the silent chamber. "Of the 200 human ships that joined the battle, only 37 survived. We lost 163 vessels and 32,000 personnel." The numbers hit the alien representatives like a physical blow. Some species had never lost that many individuals in their entire history. The idea that one small fleet had sacrificed so much was almost impossible to understand. Lord Vexthal, the proud leader of the Celestial Empire, stood slowly from his golden throne. His usual arrogant expression was gone, replaced by something the galaxy had never seen before on his face: humility. "The Celestial Empire lost 12 ships and 300 personnel," he said quietly. "We fired 10,000 shots and achieved minimal damage to the enemy. The human fleet fired perhaps 1,000 shots and destroyed the entire swarm." Commander Thexanol of the Crystalline Hierarchy stepped forward, his crystal body flickering with nervous energy. "I must ask the question that troubles us all. How did you do it? How did your primitive weapons succeed where our advanced technology failed?" Dr. Martinez adjusted her glasses, a habit she had kept even after the battle. The swarm had evolved to fight energy weapons. They had been consuming fleets with plasma cannons and particle beams for centuries, but they had never faced kinetic weapons, chemical explosives, or nuclear fire. "But that cannot be the only reason," insisted Navigator Yoleth from the Harmony. "Coalition. Many species have access to kinetic weapons. Why did you succeed where others would have failed?" Collins looked around the chamber at the alien faces watching him. "Because we were willing to lose everything to win. Your people are smart, advanced, peaceful. You build beautiful ships and fight clean wars. But sometimes you need someone crazy enough to ram a nuclear reactor into the enemy's face." The chamber fell silent. The aliens understood technology and strategy, but they struggled with the human concept of absolute sacrifice. Their advanced civilizations had spent thousands of years removing risk and danger from their lives. The idea of willingly embracing death was alien to most of them. Hive Queen Zixara spoke through her communication device, her voice carrying the weight of her 200 years of rule. "We have called your people Deathworlders as an insult. We see now that it was a compliment. You do not fear death because you understand it. You live with it every day on your harsh planet." "Earth tried to kill us for millions of years," Collins replied. "Ice ages, volcanoes, asteroids, plagues, predators. We learned to fight back against impossible odds because we had no choice. Every human child grows up knowing that sometimes you have to stand up to bullies even if they're bigger than you." The alien representatives exchanged glances. Their homeworlds were safe, comfortable places where natural disasters were rare, and predators had been eliminated long ago. The idea of an entire species shaped by constant danger was difficult for them to grasp. Captain Ben Harper, one of the few human ship commanders to survive the battle, stepped forward. His ship, the UES Defiance, had been so badly damaged that it was barely able to limp back to the junction. But it had survived, just like its captain. "We didn't fight because we were heroes," Harper said simply. "We fought because someone had to. When the swarm was coming for your worlds, your families, your children, we couldn't just stand by and watch. That's not who we are." The chamber erupted in discussion as the aliens debated among themselves. Some argued that the humans were too dangerous to be trusted with advanced weapons. Others insisted that they were exactly what the galaxy needed to defend against future threats. It was the ethereal collective's representative, a being of pure energy housed in a crystalline shell, who finally spoke the words that everyone was thinking. "The humans saved us all," she said, her voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "They paid a price that no other species would have been willing to pay. They gave their lives for strangers they had never met, for worlds they had never seen." "Lord." Vexful stood again, his golden robes rustling as he moved. "The Celestial Empire proposes that humanity be granted full membership in the Galactic Council, with all the rights and privileges that come with that status." "Seconded," said Commander Vexel immediately. "Agreed," added Hive Queen Zixara. The vote was unanimous. For the first time in galactic history, a species had been granted full membership based not on their technology or their wealth, but on their courage and sacrifice. But the council was not done. Navigator Yeleth stood and addressed the chamber. "We also propose that the human fleet be rebuilt and expanded. The galaxy needs defenders who understand that some fights are worth dying for." Dr. Martinez stepped forward. "We accept the membership, but we want to make something clear. We're not conquerors. We're not going to use our new status to take over other worlds or push our way of life on anyone else. We just want to help keep the peace." "And if another threat like the swarm appears?" asked Lord Vexful. Collins smiled grimly. "Then we'll do what we always do. We'll stand between the darkness and the light, and we'll fight until there's nothing left to fight with." The ceremony that followed was unlike anything in galactic history. Representatives from dozens of species came forward to honor the human dead. They spoke of Captain Maria Santos, who had sacrificed herself to wound the command ship. They remembered Captain Tony Blake, who had died firing his last shots at the enemy. They honored the 32,000 humans who had given their lives to save a galaxy that had barely accepted them. As the ceremony ended and the representatives began to leave, Collins and Martinez found themselves alone in the great chamber. The weight of what they had accomplished was finally settling in. "Do you think they really understand?" Martinez asked. "Do they get why we did it?" Collins looked up at the alien. Stars visible through the glass dome. "Maybe not completely, but they understand that we're different. That we're willing to do things they can't or won't do. And that scares them," Martinez observed. "Good," Collins replied. "Fear keeps you alive. Maybe we can teach them that too." Outside the council building, work crews were already beginning construction on the new human fleet yards. The ships that would be built there would be larger and more advanced than anything Earth had ever produced, but they would still carry the same spirit that had won the Battle of Kepler Junction. News of the human victory was spreading across the galaxy. On thousands of worlds, in hundreds of languages, the story was being told. The primitive Deathworlders had saved civilization itself. They had proven that sometimes the oldest, simplest solutions were the best ones. In the years that followed, the galaxy would change. Species that had never cooperated before began to work together. New technologies were developed that combined alien advancement with human practicality. The void swarm was gone, but there were other threats in the dark spaces between stars. But now the galaxy had guardians. Beings who had learned on a harsh world that some things were worth fighting for, worth dying for. The Deathworlders had earned their place among the stars, and they would never let their new family down. The human fleet would grow, and with it, the galaxy's hope for the future. Because somewhere in the darkness, new threats were already stirring, and when they came, they would find that the galaxy was no longer defenseless. They would find that the Deathworlders were waiting,